the Sword of Mercury. And today we're going to talk about something that'll be worth your while. It's the topic of martial arts and really how to utilize it to its fullest potential. And I'll tell you, it's not in the act of punching harder or in the speed that you move with. Even though it's related to all those concepts, is something beyond it and something that is fundamental to martial arts. This is why you see like a lot of martial artists are also having some kind of concept of spirituality or connection to some almost higher state of consciousness, because the act of martial arts in its purest sense is the act of connecting to a higher state of consciousness. So, if you're interested in improving your martial arts, even the slightest, you're going to want to stick around for this. So, let's begin. Essentially, what I would say the very basis of martial arts is, before even, when people think about it, maybe think about like fighting or learning how to defend oneself. But I would say martial arts in its purest form is something even beyond that, when we actually get to the basis of what it is. And I think that one of the things that is a foundational aspect of this concept is the act of awareness, the concept of being aware. Think of it, one of the most fundamental things in martial arts is being aware of the environment, being aware how things are moving, being aware of punches, being aware of kicks or slight movement in the field, right? So when we really put that into action, in applying that to how we look at how to maneuver through these circumstances by utilizing what we have learned from these practices, then we can utilize them to their fullest potential. So, awareness of the field, I would say, is part of the fundamental basis of this. And this is really relating to the crux of actually where this term comes from. And when you understand this, you'll look at life completely differently. And a lot of martial arts revelations will probably come into view for you. So, this fluff is all over the place. The crux of this almost is that when we're talking about martial arts, we're not just talking about a word or a style of fighting or even the act of awareness, but we're talking about the way that consciousness is maneuvering itself in the energy field. So, if you've ever been interested in the Bible, look to the Bible. We talk about the Church of Philadelphia, the third eye center. This is really what martial arts is tied to. The reason why it's called martial arts, because it relates to Mars. And Mars is the planet of individuality. It is the I. It is the individual in its state separate from that of the cosmos, in your highest celestial form. And martial arts, at its purest sense, is self-expression. So, is how one maneuvers through the field in this case. So, if you want a translation of what I mean by this will change your view on martial arts, then think about everything you've learned from martial arts so far. Think of the way you carry rhythm in boxing by bouncing on your feet, on your toes, and think about the way your punches move in a certain rhythm, and your head weaving through those punches, evading every single one. And then imagine that applied to your movement in the rest of life, such as every time you took a step, every time you moved your hand, every time you put your fingers through your hair. What if that movement was just surreal with a sense of flow and calmness? How do you think you would move through life if every movement you had was based on a certain flow or rhythm? And the reason why this concept of spirituality comes into it, and the same reason, which is likely why a lot of martial artists also have a concept of spirituality, is that the Church of Philadelphia relates to the element of light in the third eye. And as we talked in the previous episode about the Matrix, when the grid, the energy grid that is, forms light, materializes it in thought or imagination, and imprints it on the grid, there's a process that goes on from the human body is light imprinted on water. We are 75% water, so the light is hitting the water medium, forming a reflection. Martial arts, self-expression is the expression of this flow. Mars is individuality, which is the individual as a whole. So this process is the individuality, and it is self-expression. So they're the same thing. Here, I'll get the tappy marker. Tap, 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 tap. They're effectively the same thing. Mars, martial arts, come from the same word, mar. Martial sphere, relating to Mars, the martial sphere. Martial arts, Mars. It's the yin-yang. If you want to talk about exercises that you can do in martial arts or practices or forms of martial art that I'm referring to here when I talk about this flow and utilizing it to its potential in the rest of life. You know, when people talk about things like Tai Chi or understanding breath or pranic breathing or yoga or anything like that. Yoga might not be martial art. None of those might be specifically martial art in this sense of what we commonly think of it. But if we talk about martial art under the concept that it was meant to be, and it was truly meant to always be self-expression, then all of those qualify as martial art. So they all are a form of self-expression in the field, and when you can express yourself in the field, then you are tapping in to this higher force, this force that is maybe what they would call higher spiritual self or higher self or whatever. You're tapping into a flow that is beyond what you could have just done on your own with your own ego. But through connecting with the flow, connecting through calmness and stillness within the mind, within the body, within the spirit, you can apply this to everything. You know, maybe even when you're applying this outside of your practice of martial arts, you can be cooking dinner and you can maneuver through the kitchen, and maybe you're, opening cupboards and getting the right ingredient out and closing it just as you maneuver through the field, right? Everything seems to be moving at just the right time. That is what we're talking about here, the truest sense of martial art. when we talk about Tai Chi, when we talk about yoga, when we talk about pranic breathing, when we talk about the states those facilitate being a state of flow, then, essentially we're talking about I don't know, this is some anime ultra instinct. But the concept is that these originate from a state of calmness and stillness within all aspects of being. And Church of Philadelphia, which is related to light, is also related to a certain hierarchy of the angels, or the archangels. Archangel of Mars is Archangel Samael, who is said to be the accuser, almost like if you were in a court. Michael would be like the defense, and Samael would be the prosecution. So he's a divine prosecutor, but he represents or is tied to the aspect of individuality through this planetary sphere of Mars. So that's why, he's sometimes called a light bringer, because he is tied to the concept of Mars and the concept of light, the element of light in the third eye. When you understand this force of higher self, or higher martial art almost, the purest form of martial art, you're tapping into almost this ability to maneuver through the light field. So that is a very most divine state of martial art, which is possibly the highest form attained. So the reason why I'm talking about this is because I personally have experienced this myself, and I would say that if you're a martial artist or somebody practicing martial arts and you place great value, I want you to know that this is possible and state achievable by a practitioner, that one can fully integrate their training into their life when they maneuver through circumstances. And yes, that might be, I would say, interrupted at some points. The flow of that throughout circumstance in a day might be disrupted at certain points. But just like a fight that, goes back and forth between two fighters, so too does life. But if one continues to apply their practice, then it's just a matter of time. So, this has been the Sword of Mercury. Today we're talking about Mars, ironically, but essentially we're talking about this aspect of the Church of Philadelphia, Archangel Samael, related to the sphere, the Archangel of the light element. And then we're talking about martial arts and Mars, concepts linked to individuality and self-expression. And the concept as a whole is that you maneuver through this field, through the light energy, if you can only sense the subtle flow of energy. So, that is what I have for you today on martial arts. And let me know if you enjoyed types of videos like this. I'll sum up here with the box because it seems like the box was a big hit last time. Maybe we should have him as like a regular guest. Let's just call him Box. But your martial art is absolute. is absolute. When you move through the field, you move with perfect agility, calmness, effortlessly moving through the field. Just know the state is attainable. Anytime you can tap into that aspect of the self, and you can do it by practicing your art form, your form of self-expression, your art of truth. I think that is all for the box, but let me know if you appreciated this video by leaving a like. It really does help support the channel. If you enjoyed content like this, then I recommend subscribing to the channel. I do have my Instagram linked just in the channel description if you're interested. I will start posting more actively on the account for this channel. I am currently in college, so time is often short in my free time. I try to apply mostly to this and reading books on this stuff. But yeah, so if you enjoy me talking about this stuff, please help support the channel because I probably devote more time to this than is beneficial to my grade. But point is that I find this stuff is more important that you guys have this knowledge and that I'm able to do this with you guys and share, and we can all learn together. So by me talking about this, I also help myself learn more about it. So again, if you enjoyed, like, subscribe. This has been The Sword of Mercury, brought to you by the Prince of Mercury. And leave a comment under this video. And once again, like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.